greatness in a sea of the dying and shameless. So, a sea of the aimless. I don't wanna be one of the nameless. I'm a raincoat with the blessing.
What's up, everybody? Meathead Moto back with you for another day to pump up your... Let's redo that because I fucked up. How's it going, everybody? Meathead Moto back with you for... Wow, why am I screwing this up? I'm getting in my own head on it. Jesus. What's up, everybody? Meathead Moto back with you for another video to pump up your day with some motorcycle content. There we go. Now I finally get the intro correct. As I said, how's everybody doing? We're back with you again on the bike, finally. The last time you guys saw me, I was bringing it back from the shop, and it's been kind of an abysmal temperature. It's actually cold up here, but you can see that little stretch of open sky over there. It's at least almost 50 in Sioux Falls, but just here a few miles north of Sioux Falls, it's only 40 something. What did it say? 41? 44? Ah, that's better. As I say, I don't think it's that cold up here. We're gonna head down into Sioux Falls for a little bit and see what kind of shenanigans we can get into. But along the way, I think we'll chit-chat about some things. Harley-Davidson's releasing a new Sportster, I'm pretty sure. Most everybody on the internet says it's a new Sportster, and I'd have to agree. I think it's kind of a modernized Sportster where they were able to tweak the frame a bit and put the 975cc Revolution Max in it, so that way it's a little bit more of an entry-level Sportster while actually being sporty, you know, actually being pretty powerful. And I think that's a good move on Harley's part, but we'll see what it actually is and what the details are of it once April 12th comes to pass. Today, though, speaking of beginner bikes, always a big question, always a huge question on the internet, especially from people that are considering getting into riding, want to learn to ride a motorcycle. What's a good beginner bike? What's a good starter bike? What? I have no experience. It gets thrown out there all the time. Everybody's got their own opinion on what makes a good beginner bike, and to everybody there's going to be a level of intimidation to what kind of resorts as a beginner bike. But the thing that I think that we all actually want to distill it down to is, instead of naming specific bikes, we ought to ask real questions. You got to ask these critical questions to the person that's considering getting a motorcycle, for them to be actually able, for me to, or for anybody to narrow down what it is that you're going to be comfortable on to start with. What in the world is that? Kitty cat? Hi, kitty cat. I think the first question we need to ask: what's your experience? Do you have any experience on a motorcycle? If you're at zero, that really changes where we need to start. You know, if you've had some dirt bike experience, or if you've had like a scooter experience or something like that, and you just haven't made it to your license, then you're going to already have a level of experience that quite a lot of people don't have. And the simple fact of the matter is that if you have some experience, it's better than none. And you can cheat away and get a little bit bigger bike if you're so inclined. But if you're starting at zero, you got to be looking at, I want to say under 600 cc's if you're looking in like the Japanese motorcycle brands. 600cc is usually their entry-level super sport bike. Anywhere between like that 700 on and down, 750 I think is probably the biggest that I would consider going as a beginner, just because there are certain beginner bikes that are in that higher level of displacement that are actually relatively easy to approach. So that would be, if you're looking at a Japanese bike as a beginner bike, that would be where I would start. If you're looking at an American cruiser, I would recommend anything between, well, let's say the Harley Sportster is like 883 or 1200. I wouldn't recommend the new Revolution Max as a good beginner bike. The new Sportster S that has the 1250 Revolution Max. That thing makes a lot of power compared to the previous generation Sportsters. Either that or a Street 500 750. On the Indian side, you really only have one option for a smaller displacement one, and that's the Scout 60. That is still a 1000cc bike, so it does produce ample amount of power. I think it's 78 horsepower at the crank, so you know, it's comparable to a Yamaha FZ07 as far as like horsepower numbers. But that would be where I would start things. You know, Japanese bikes, Japanese cruisers, anywhere between like 250cc up to about 750. For American cruisers, 500cc's to 1,000, or 1,200 for Harley Sportsters. You know, and that's considering you having no experience or some experience. And then the other question is how big are you? You know, are you a small framed person where you're, you know, 5 foot, maybe barely breaking over 100 pounds, 110 pounds? Or are you a butch dude that's 6'5", 310, and you know, even if you have no experience at that size, a Sportster is going to be a really small bike for you. Maybe, I could be wrong, but that does come down to you sitting on some bikes and figuring out what you actually want to ride on. Depending on your size, it's really going to depend on, or going to really change how you select a motorcycle that you want to learn on. Because if you're a very small frame person, finding a bike is also going to be a hard task that'll get you if you find a bike that's too tall. You know, it's going to really hurt your confidence to try and swing your leg up on it. And if you're actually a small frame person like 5 foot, 4'11", and you don't weigh a whole lot, a small bike is going to feel heavy, but a really big bike like a Sportster is going to feel even heavier. So, you know, take into account that what your size is. You know, if you're a big person, you're going to want to look towards a bigger frame bike. You know, if you're a 6'5", 6'4", 300, 280, whatever pound person, you know, you probably are going to want to lean towards a cruiser, because that bike is going to probably fit your frame better. Especially like take an Indian Scout. It's got forward controls. It's got a rather relaxed riding position while still being upright. It can definitely handle and accommodate a taller framed person. But the thing about most of the bikes that are in the cruiser segment that I will say for you shorter people is that they are modifiable so that they can better accommodate your size. So they're not too tall for you or too heavy for you. You can definitely change some things out to make it so that they're lighter weight. Now, granted, it's not going to drastically drop your weight down on the bike. Weight is really one thing that you can't quite change, but I should say that with that, you can take off some weight and you can get some more confidence handling a bike that weighs more if it's set up correctly. So we've nailed down displacement, style, and your size and experience level. Those are kind of the big four when it comes to picking a beginner bike. Now, of those four things, once you've taken it into account, this is what I would suggest you go check out for a bike. If you are a zero experience rider, you're a rather small person, I would lean towards the Japanese bikes personally. And there's quite a few inexpensive ones you can get. And I'm going to talk about like brand new bikes. I know that's kind of, there's a big difference between new and used, but we're just going to keep it simple and talk brand new bikes that you can go to a dealership, find them on a showroom floor, hopefully, cross fingers with the way things are. But anyway, that you can go to their shop, their showroom, walk around, find this bike, sit on it, figure out if you like it or not, maybe walk out the door with it. I would look at, for a shorter frame person, smaller person with zero experience, looking towards like the 300cc, 400cc, the Z400 from Kawasaki, the CB300F, and then there's an R version that's like a sport bike look. Same with the Ninja, or the Kawasaki. There's a Ninja 400. You know, if you're looking for that kind of a flavor, that's what I would go with. If you want more of a cruiser look, I would go towards the Rebel, the Rebel 300. That's a good bike for somebody that has no experience on a bike, has never worked a clutch, never worked a shift, never done any of that. That's where I would look first, see if those bikes catch your eye, tickle your fancy, sit on them, get to know them, see if they vibe with you. If you're a small frame person and you got a little bit of experience, say you've had some dirt bike experience, or maybe, you know, you had somebody teach you how to work the clutch on a bike once or twice. Maybe you've ridden around on somebody's Grom because they let you, you know, get experience with motorcycling in that little bitty way. Then I would go up towards like those 500cc bikes, so like the CBR 500F, the CBR 500R, the Rebel 500 if you're feeling more of a cruiser look. Then you can go like towards maybe the like Yamaha FZ07 or the R7 now that they have for more of a sport bike flair, I should say. You know, the Kawasaki Z650, the Ninja 650. Those kind of bikes, a little bit more power, little bit heavier, not by much, but they are heavier because they are bigger bikes. But they are definitely going to have a lot more growing room once you've gotten over the initial like shock of learning a motorcycle and balancing it, taking off from a stop sign, braking, and all these little things. Once you get past that, those kind of bikes will have a lot of room for you to grow in, that you're not looking to get rid of a bike within 2 or 3 months of buying one. Now, if you're a small frame person, you got even a lot of experience now, you could consider going towards like, you know, you might be pushing close to that 1000cc, or like the Z900s, the MT09s, those kind of bikes have definitely got more of a personality to them, and they definitely make a lot more power, and if you don't have the experience to handle them, they will school you quick. But if you do have the experience, like I'm hypothetically speaking here, you know, they'll be easy for you to get on and go and ride. That you could also consider getting an Iron 883, a Sportster 1200, a Scout 60, or even the Scout Bobber, the bigger bike, the 1133s. You know, and as you go up in size as far as a person, like a middleweight to a heavyweight person, I would just skip over those smaller bikes. You know, personally, I was a middleweight person. I'm like 6 foot, and when I started riding, I was pushing 240 or 250, so I was a big boy. And I started out on a CBR 250R, and I rode that thing for about a month, took my class, and got my license, and then after that, I was basically ready to move on. And I didn't move on for a while, but I stopped riding a lot. Like, I didn't ride nearly as much as I had in that first month. The bike was just not very fun to ride because I had grown past it. I was ready for something with more oomph behind it, a little bit more power, bigger bike, you know. So I moved on quick. So like a middleweight to a heavier weight person, I would skip over those 200s, 300s, 400cc bikes, and I would consider getting stuff like a Rebel 500, the Yamaha FZ07, the R7. Even with zero experience, that's where I would go. Maybe the Iron 883 if you want more of an American cruiser. And then when you have a little bit of experience, I would go to the bigger bikes, you know, the 1200cc Sportster, the Scout 60, or the big Scout. You could go to a Rebel 1100 as well. I know that they have like power modes on their bikes, so they can be a little bit more approachable for a bigger person. Now obviously I'm making very big generalizations here, because all this stuff doesn't have to actually fall in line. I know a lot of people that have skipped right over all these small beginner bike and beginner cruisers, and they went right to baggers. Guys, girls, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm making a very generalized video here because there are quite a few of you that, if you're looking at getting a motorcycle, especially now that gas prices are high, you don't know a damn thing about them. So I want to just educate you a little bit and fill you in on like what I would look for a bike if I was a beginner, and what I think is good on the market. Now obviously there are different things in the used category. If you're going, or I should say, if you're going the used route where you're not going to be spending a lot of money on a bike, it doesn't hurt to start small and then just get out of that bike once you're ready to move up to something big without actually hurting your wallet. Whereas if you start on a brand new bike and you start too small, what'll happen is you'll be grown past that bike real quick. And once you've grown past that bike, you're already in a financial hole because that bike is depreciated too much for you to just jump out of it and get into something new sometimes. So you kind of end up getting stuck with it for a while. That's how it was for me. So I hope this video made sense to you guys that are interested in getting a motorcycle and are beginners, don't really know what you're looking for, not really sure what to throw a leg over. I hope this helped narrow it down a little bit for you by throwing out some suggestions based on manufacturers and what they offer for small displacement and even mid-sized displacement motorcycles. So until next time, guys, I hope to see you in another video. Like 93% of you or so are not subscribed to the channel. I'd really appreciate it if you decided to hang around for a little bit and catch some more videos, because we keep doing this once a week where I have a video releasing usually on Sunday afternoons, Sunday evenings. So I hope that you all will find a home here on the Meathead channel and maybe not lose a few brain cells in the process despite what the channel name says. Until next time, guys, I will see you later.